Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be sharing some tips for time management. Now, this is a question that people have been asking me about for the last several years. They see that I'm a full-time doctor, if you didn't know. I've got this YouTube channel, I run my own business, I like to sing songs and play guitar, and I like to give the impression that I've got a vibrant social life as well. And people often email me or Instagram DM me or whatever asking, how do you manage your time? How are you able to do so much stuff? How are you so cool? So in this video, I'm going to be attempting to address these queries by talking about some principles, some tactics, and some tools that I've personally found helpful to allow me to do all this extra stuff with my time. And speaking of time, this video is kindly sponsored by ExpressVPN, the fastest virtual private network provider in the world, and I'll talk a little bit more about them at the end of the video. So the most important thing that really changed the game for me in terms of time management was recognizing that my time was fully and 100% in my control. Like back in the day, I used to be tempted to use the phrase, I don't have time, when, talking about like going to the gym. I kind of realized over time that actually I am fully in control of my own time, and at any given moment, I am doing what I most want to be doing. It's never the case that I don't have time to go to the gym. It's always the case that going to the gym is currently not a priority in my life. So yeah. Subtle mindset shift, and that's principle number 1 for time management that I've personally found really helpful in my life. Principle number 2 is something called the Pareto Principle, or the 80-20 rule that you might have come across. The general idea is that for most things in life actually, about 80% of the results come from about 20% of the inputs. So I think Marie Kondo, the whole minimalist, tidy living, minimalist home, all that stuff, has this thing that, only 20% of your possessions are bringing you 80% of value. And actually this applies to so many other things, like especially when it comes to effective studying. Often when it comes to exams that we take at school and university, 80% of the marks are going to be coming from 20% of the content. Like if you really understand that 20% of content, you can figure out how to get the 80% of marks. And sort of by extension, I realized that this applies to learning new skills as well. I taught myself how to play the guitar and the piano a few years ago by following YouTube tutorials and using Justin Guitar and all that stuff. At the start, I thought that learning piano and guitar would be hard, but it's really not. Like if you want to get to a reasonable standard in guitar, if you want to be able to play the guitar while singing along, all you have to do is basically learn 4 chords, and those 4 chords let you play the vast majority of pop songs in the world, and you can just move the capo up and down to change the key. And that kind of changes the game, because anyone can learn 4 chords on the guitar. You just need to buy a guitar for about £30 from a second-hand shop like I did one day, teach yourself the chords using Justin Guitar, practice for about 2 weeks or a month, and suddenly you're at the level where you could literally stand on stage, play these chords, and sing whatever song you want. Prior to learning guitar, I kind of had it in my head that this is like a really hard thing, but when I started to learn it, I kept this 80-20 principle in mind. I kept saying to myself, okay, no, this is actually easier than it seems. I'm gonna focus on the 20% of chords that's actually going to result in 80% of the songs that I can play. So I think this applies all the way across the board with things like piano, digital artistry, graphic design, coding, photography, video editing, YouTube. All of the things that I've taught myself over the years. From the outside looking in, it seems like, oh my God, how do you do all this stuff? But actually, when you really get down to it and try and teach yourself this stuff, you realize that it's not as hard as it initially appears, and you can focus on the 20% to get the 80%. But yeah, that's principle number 2. And principle number 3 is something called Parkinson's law. And Parkinson's law states that work expands to fill the time that we allocate to it. And we've all probably had this feeling where when we've got a deadline coming up the next day or the day after, we get so much more work done. Whereas if we've got, an assignment that's in for 2 months from now, we're just gonna procrastinate and put it off until like the week before or the night before. I think Parkinson's law applies to almost everything in life as well. Like you can always be a bit more efficient by giving yourself less time to do something, and more time almost never, in my experience, leads to a better result. So this is kind of the case of getting over the idea of perfectionism and just churning stuff out and recognizing that if you give yourself a short amount of time to do it, then things just work out. Okay, so those were 3 broad overarching principles for time management. Let's now talk about some tactics for time management, and tactics are kind of drilling down a bit more into rules that we can follow, stuff like that. The first one is the 2-minute rule, and I came across this in a really good book called Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity by a chap called David Allen. This is like the world's most famous book about productivity, and in it he introduces the 2-minute rule, which is the idea is that if you have a task that is going to take you less than 2 minutes, you should just do it now rather than put it off. Every day I come across tasks that I know will take me less than 2 minutes, and for the most part I try and get them done there and then so that they're not kind of in my mind or on my to-do list or languishing. Like, there's a mug behind the camera over there. It will take me less than 2 minutes just to pick it up after I film this video and stick it in the sink, and that will just make my workspace a little bit more neater. So yeah, 2-minute rule applies to everything. If something's gonna take less than 2 minutes, just do it now. The second tactic is called batching, and I first came across this in Tim Ferriss's amazing book, The 4-Hour Workweek, which is the single book that's most changed my life. And that is a book all about kind of productivity and efficiency and maximizing time management and stuff. So if you're interested in this sort of topic, you should definitely read The 4-Hour Workweek if you haven't already. But in the book, he talks about this idea of batching. Like, it's pretty intuitive. It's like, let's say, you know, throughout the week, you get lots of emails that you have to reply to. It makes sense to do that all at the same time rather than taking 5 minutes out sort of here and there every hour of the day to reply to emails. And I find that batching all these similar tasks together really helps because I'm not then context switching. It's not like I'm working on a video and suddenly I'm replying to an email. It's that I'm working on a video and then when I make the time, I'm going to reply to these 16 emails that I have to reply to. Equally, the same thing applies for filming videos. Part of the reason why I'm able to put out at least one video a week is because I sit down and batch film them. So today I'm going to be filming like 6 videos and then I'll edit them over the course of the week or send them off to my editor because I now have an editor now, which is very exciting. And finally, the third tactic is my personal rule for watching TV, which is that I'm not allowed to watch TV if I'm watching TV on my own. And actually in the last 2 years, I think the only TV I've watched on my own, like sitting on my own, is one episode of Game of Thrones, because no one came around to watch it with me that day. One episode of Chernobyl, because I was interested because everyone was talking about it. And I watched a season of You on Netflix when I was on a flight. I think that's allowed when you're on an airplane. But for the last like 3-4 years of my life while I was at university, I made this rule for myself that I'm just not allowed to watch TV if I'm on my own. TV is fine as, like, in my opinion, as a social activity. But I found that if I was just sitting there watching TV on my own, I'd just end up wasting so much time. And thinking back for the last 4 or 5 years, I'm really glad that I spent that time doing other things instead, like making my websites or making my business or just hanging out with friends or making this YouTube channel. I don't feel that I've missed out by not having seen The Office or by not having watched Breaking Bad for a second time or by not having watched Friends for a third time. You know, I don't lose anything by not watching TV on my own, but I gain a lot of spare time. And there's all these stats like the average American spends 3 hours a day watching TV, all this sort of stuff. And I find that with a lot of my friends, and you know, there's no judgment to them. Like if this is what they want to do, that's absolutely fine. But I find that with a lot of people, the default activity when you get home from school or when you get home from work is to put on Netflix and watch something. And if that's intentionally what you want to be doing and what you're aiming for and what makes you happy, then by all means, that's absolutely fine. All I'm saying is that for me, I don't lose anything in my life by not watching Netflix. I don't even have a Netflix account, but I gain a hell of a lot of time. And I think personally, my life is much more fulfilled and interesting because I've used that time to do other things rather than watch TV. So yeah, that's my rule for watching TV. Let me know what you think in the comments. Usually this is quite controversial when I mention it to friends. People are always like, oh, what's wrong with relaxing and stuff. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with relaxing. I'm not saying you have to hustle all the time. I am saying is that, you know, if you're going to ask me what my tips are for time management and how I'm able to do so much stuff, I think a big part of that reason is just I just don't spend any time watching TV. And so having talked about 3 principles and 3 tactics, I now want to talk about 3 tools that I find helpful in terms of time management. The first and most important one is an app for the Mac called Alfred. And I think there are equivalent apps for Windows if you're one of those people that sadly uses Windows. And Alfred is incredible because it basically lets you do anything on your Mac, just like using the keyboard. So for example, if I want to open Safari, I never ever drag my mouse over to the dock, click on Safari, because that's a waste of 3 seconds of my life. Instead, I press Command Spacebar, type in SAF, which is right next to each other on the keyboard, press enter, and I've got Safari open in about half a millisecond. It's all these little actions like this. Like let's say I want to open a file. Normally, I'd be clicking on sort of Finder, Google Drive, third year, essays, section A, human memory, and finding my file that way. This takes about 10 seconds or 15 or 20 seconds each time I want to do it. Whereas with Alfred, you can just do a file search. So you can do Command Spacebar, you can press another space, and that lets you search for files. You just type in the file name and it immediately opens. Initially, a few years ago, I was following some programmers and watching screencasts and stuff, and they were absolutely raving about Alfred and how amazing it is. And at the time I was thinking, oh, come on, man, you're just saving 10 seconds each time. But then I started using it and I realized, oh my God, the amount of time I've saved in my life by shaving off these 10 seconds for pretty much every interaction that I have with the computer is absolutely game changing. So if you are the sort of person who is still currently using your mouse to navigate your keyboard, your computer, you are wasting a lot of time. Use something like Alfred or Spotlight Search, or I think on Windows, you just press the Windows logo key thing and then you just start typing and stuff just works. Keyboard shortcuts are so much quicker to navigate a computer with than using the mouse. So that is tool number 1. Tool number 2 is an app called Forest, which is a Pomodoro timer. The Pomodoro method, you might have come across it, is the idea that we should work for 25 minutes and then have a 5-minute break, and then work 25 minutes, have a 5-minute break. And I used to use this when I was studying for exams to kind of motivate myself to kind of focused work for 25 minutes and then I'd have a break for 5 minutes with my friends. And there's a really good app called Forest that lets you do this. So it's an iOS app, I'm pretty sure it's on Android as well. And the idea is that when you want to start your timer, you press the button and then the timer starts to count down. And it's as if you're planting a tree. And in that 25 minutes, at the end of it, you have planted a tree and the tree starts to grow. But if you go off the app, i.e. if you use your phone to, look at a notification or to answer a message or something, then the tree dies. So it's kind of nice in that it's a Pomodoro timer, but it also forces you not to be distracted by all the crap that's going on your phone. So I found that quite helpful. I don't really use the Pomodoro method anymore these days, but if I were studying for exams, and now when I'm preparing for my postgraduate medical exams, I think I'm going to be using it because it just makes it a bit more of a game to study. So yeah, Forest is tool number 2. And tool number 3 is actually a website called 10 Fast Fingers. I started kind of using this website about once a month since about the age of 13. I remember we were in an ICT lesson, or IT or computing or whatever you call it. We were in one of those lessons and one of my friends discovered this and we started having these typing speed competitions against one another. And I remember when I was 13, my typing speed at the time was about 80 words per minute, 80. I saw that and I was like in the top sort of 20% or something, and I was like, okay, I need to improve my typing speed. By virtue of the fact that I just spend all my life in front of a computer, but also that occasionally I do this typing test and see where I am, I've managed to increase my typing speed from 80 words per minute to, these days I consistently get about 140, 130 words per minute on this website. That's almost a doubling of typing speed. And because a lot of the stuff that I do involves being on a computer, like coding or writing or blogging or even planning videos, having a typing speed that's twice as fast is actually quite helpful. And it's again one of those things that shaves seconds off every interaction that you have with the computer. But when you do that and apply that over a 10-year period, you end up saving a lot of time that you can then use for other things. So I'd recommend giving it a go. Have a go at 10fastfingers.com, see what your typing speed is, and then see if you can work to kind of improve it, because that's another one of those little tools that shaves off seconds each time that I found useful for time management. And speaking of tools, I just want to end by giving a massive shout out to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this video. ExpressVPN is the world's fastest virtual private network service provider, and with just a few clicks, you can protect your privacy online, and they've got apps for Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, Linux, anything you can think of. So I personally use ExpressVPN whenever I'm on public Wi-Fi. So I just press the little button on my Mac and connect to a virtual private network, which is completely secure. Public Wi-Fis, apparently, I read several years ago, are a way for hackers to get access to some of your data. So if you have, social logins that I care about, or if you're going to be sharing your credit card details online and shopping online and stuff, it's probably worth connecting to that Wi-Fi and then going via VPN so that all of the data that you're sending and receiving is secure. The other really cool thing about ExpressVPN is that if you're feeling like it, you can unblock content that's restricted in your country. For example, if you were with friends, like I was talking about in the video, and you wanted to watch an episode on Netflix or Hulu or something that wasn't available in your country, you can use ExpressVPN to log in as if you were in the United States, for example, and then you can watch that TV show with your friends, obviously, because you're not going to watch it alone, because that would be a waste of time. And if that all sounds cool, then if you sign up today, you can actually get 3 months free with a 1-year package. And this actually comes out to be less than $7 a month. And that, I think, is a price worth paying if you want to protect your privacy online. And they even have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you literally have nothing to lose. To take advantage of this offer, please visit expressvpn.com/Ali Abdaal to learn more. So thanks ExpressVPN for sponsoring this episode about time management. And thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you liked this kind of video and this kind of topic, you might like to subscribe to my email newsletter. And this is like an email that I send every week that has a few kind of paragraphs that I've thought about like productivity or time management, like this sort of stuff. And in that email, I also share some links to interesting articles or podcasts or videos that I've discovered that week, along with like a Kindle highlight of the week. So like I share one of my highlights from a random book that people seem to enjoy. At the moment, it's got about 9,000 subscribers in the mailing list. So if you'd like to join these 9,000 people and get a weekly email from me, then have a look. I'll put the link in the video description as well, so you can check that out if you like. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.